So when I saw that and I came to Joburg to study finance, and then my first job was around investing pension funds, and that's how I'm like, oh my goodness, this looks so much like Stokvels, how we were investing the pension fund money. I was like, oh
It
my goodness, so
is.
a
It
group of
is.
people contribute
Mm.
for this funds and for it to be invested. I wonder why Stokveld never did this. I just got curious because I just like, oh my goodness, pension funds are like Stokvels.
Welcome to another brilliant episode of Crowd Talk, where we aim to educate, empower, and experience the beauty of crowdfunding. Today, I have none other than Palesa Lengolo, who is talking to me from Johannesburg, South Africa, the brilliant author of the book called Stokvel, and which tries to encourage people to take ownership of their financial lives. Palesa, welcome, welcome, welcome. I really appreciate the time you're giving me here. We met a couple of weeks ago at SLC 2.0, where there was a 2 day conference for Stokvel leaders, and I was just blown away. So thank you, Palesa. Just please introduce yourself, say hi to people out here, let them know who you are.
Thank you so much, Batu. I'm very excited to be on Crowd Talk and looking forward to having a very fruitful discussion around Stokvels. So, as you said, my name is Palesa Lengolo. I am the author of the book. I'm also a Stokvel expert. So, what I do is I'm in the business of developing Stokvels via financial literacy, making them ready for opportunities, and really educating them in terms of how to get into business, basically as a group or as a collective, in using the collective power that they have. So basically, that's what I do. I speak, I write, I teach, and I consult and coach.
Oh my
On the personal note
goodness.
side, I'm just an ordinary girl from Matatiele, a small town in between Eastern Cape and KZN in South Africa. That's where I learned all about Stokvels. I'm a woman of God. I love Jesus, and I enjoy the ordinary things of typical South African Black women.
Wow, that is absolutely beautiful. Thanks, Palisa. So, you've already mentioned you are the author of the book Stokvel, How They Can Make Your Money Work for You. What inspired you to write this book?
So, firstly, as I mentioned, I'm from a very small town, and I actually grew up in a village. And Stokvels were like the source of things, whether somebody had passed away or for groceries. I grew up being sent around to go put the contribution. I remember back then it was not even money; it was Millie meal or candle or matches. When somebody had passed away, we knew that in the village, everybody puts together those things in order to assist the bereaved household, and then that's how. And then I saw it also growing from that to say, okay, now send 10 rand. Everybody in this section are contributing 10 rand for a burial or to groceries. But the biggest one was always groceries because my mom was big on it because of extended family. So she would get into grocery Stokvels, and then would go and fetch the food and then share it with the rest of extended family. So that's how I literally got introduced into Stokvels. And then I saw her also evolving from the grocery and the burial to the borrowing one, which was the biggest one, where she made a lot of side money for it, because they used to charge these interest for when you're borrowing from their Stokvels. So when I saw that and I came to Joburg to study finance, and then my first job was around investing pension funds, and that's how I'm like, oh my goodness, this looks so much like Stokvels, how we were investing the pension fund money. I was like, oh
It
my goodness, so
is.
a
It
group of
is.
people contribute
Mm.
for this funds and for it to be invested. I wonder why Stokveld never did this. I just got curious because I was just like, oh my goodness, pension funds are like Stokvels.
Mm.
Then I just started taking a liking to my work and trying to understand the rules, how it works, and I saw that it looks exactly like a stokvel, a formalized, structured stokvel. So I was just like, I'd like to find out to test this theory around here, since I'm here, if there's any stokvels that have ever thought of investing. And that's how I started my journey. I researched who's doing what in Joburg, Pretoria, around Stokvels. And that's how I came across the Stokvel Academy run by Mambosi. And then I contacted her. I'm like, I'd like to come see the Stokvels that come there.
Okay,
And
okay.
yeah, so yeah, you see, it's such a long story. So when I went there and she
Uh,
told me what she does, she's like, no, Stokvels come meet here. We teach each other about entrepreneurship, with how to run our stokvels efficiently. We also do touch on some of the financial products and financial literacy, depending if there's a bank or financial institution that is sponsoring that. So then I was more interested into that. I'm like, what exactly do you teach the stokvels that come here? And then she was like, no, interest, bank charges, nothing hectic. I'm like, oh my goodness. I work at this pension fund industry and they exactly like stokvels. I would like to come
right.
here teach people how to invest their money.
Yeah,
So
you
that's
know.
how the journey then started.
No, no, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so the journey started in that way because I was just like, no, I am volunteering to please come and teach this. And she was like, no, there's somebody who actually does this. I'll talk to them and you guys can see which one brings what. I'm like, no, I just want investment education because of what I've recently
Right.
been exposed to. I'll come and teach the investment sides and then we'll see how it goes. But most importantly, I would like to know what these groups that come here will, what do they know, what don't they know. So I started documenting their pain points in terms of financial products,
Right.
how much they don't know. And then that's how I saw there's so much lack of financial literacy. But most importantly, never mind the investment education side of it. They were consumer based, they were very short term based. And as the more I went, and then I realized why they are that way, and I kept on documenting this, and sometimes even taking it to
When
people
you
that
were
I know.
documenting, was the intention to write a book, or was it just you
No, I've never seen
recording and
myself as a writer.
learning?
To be honest, I have never thought of
Uh,
writing a book. I've heard people saying, oh, someday I'll write a book. I'm like, oh, good on you. But I'd never,
yeah.
so my intention was actually documenting to see how to solutionize for this, either approach
Ah,
banks or in institutions and work with them, which is exactly what I did. I would go to your easy equities and be like, have you guys thought of taking up Stokvels as part of your clients? What would be
right.
required? What would be the issue? And then whatever they tell me, I'd be like, hey guys, apparently they do accept Stokvels here. This is what you needed and this is how you need it. But this is the challenge. How can we work around this? So I started being that in between person between the actual
Right.
stokvels and the formal institutions. But the whole documenting thing was like, okay, let me get all the problems of these people and then approach these people and see how they can work with each other,
Wow.
only to come up with the document that was just so much content in it. But still, again, I had never thought of turning into a book. So during that,
Right.
obviously, there was a lot of media interviews, a lot of writing about what I'm finding out, but it was never like maybe somebody saying, no, have a comment on this. What do you think? I'm like, no, through my experience, this is and this and this and happening. Until then, Penguin said, I think when I've done that for like 3 years or 4 years, and it's like, no, we've been seeing the work that you're doing. Have you ever thought about writing a book? I'm like, no, I've never thought about
Wow.
writing a book.
Was it not scary?
And I'm like, no, I don't. It was scary. Actually wanted to turn the offer down because I've never seen myself write a book. So just like, first
Yeah.
of all, I'm in corporate where I'm gonna get time to write a book.
Yes. Wow.
And then secondly, it was, oh my goodness, how do you write a book? It needs so much content. And then they're like, no, we're giving you 2 months to think about it. So that was enough time. I'm like, actually, I do have content and I can actually put something together that can actually talk to the actual Stokvel and to the institutions that I've been trying to facilitate. And actually, the book will reach more to places that I won't be able to reach. So it's actually an expansion of what I'm already doing. So let me try this.
So,
And then
so
I
the
did.
fear of writing became a yes.
The fear of writing became a yes, and I actually fell in love with writing. I actually have a column now on Bona.
Wow.
so,
And
so
is it
it was
still
a
with the
nice
same type
practice.
of financial literacy and teaching people?
Yes, it's on financial wellness, but it's just not only on Stokvels, it's just on general financial wellness for everyone.
Okay. No, great stuff. Really, really love that. I mean, it clearly was a labor of love for you because it took you 4 years. And then somebody
Yes.
had to say, well, you've been accumulating all this knowledge. Why don't you package it into a book? So let's just take a little bit of a step back. I mean, for somebody who's not in South Africa, what is a stokvel? I mean, I think you've already sort of described it a little bit, but just briefly, what is a stokvel?
Actually, a Stokvel is such a common phenomenon because depending on what you call it, when I was doing
Right.
research, it's actually quite a movement that is used in a lot of countries outside South Africa and mostly in Africa, but even in America, they use stockfalls. They just call them clubs, investment clubs, and
Right, right.
crowdfunding, SACCOs, and even in South Africa, parts of South Africa, when you say Stokvel, I'm like, no, rona ha re Stokvel, re club, kapa re
Okay.
so it depends on what you call it, but the principle is definitely hore, it's a collective of resources and financial resources together for a common goal. So
Right.
it's a group of people coming together to use their collective power to solve a certain common goal. When I say solve, or it can be to benefit, to impact, to access as a
Right.
group. And it's not only financial, but it also comes with, that's why I said it's a collection of financial, with
Right.
people coming together for financial reasons, but it can also be for resources, because one of the things that we don't talk about collectively is that when you are in a organized group, you are exposed to different skills, different professions, different strengths, and within that group that you can actually use to reach this common goal that you have come together
Right.
for. So that's how I would describe what is a stokvel: a collection of people with a collection of resources and financial resources for a common goal.
I like that. If I steal it, don't say I stole your quotation, but I love that. So it's essentially it's
But you
people
can call it
coming
whatever you
together.
want. But the principle is
Yeah.
definitely that.
Yeah, I mean in my own country, Botswana, we call it motel.
Motelo. But is that the whole country call it Motelo?
Yeah, you see, I think the thing is Botswana by and large speaks one language. We're very different from South Africa in the sense that you've got large tribes. So there's Zulu, there's Xhosa, there's Pedi, there's Shangan. We do have uh, a lot of tribes, but generally we speak Setswana with just different dialects. So
Motelo.
across the country,
It
when you say
actually makes
Motelo, people know
sense.
what you're talking about. You're saying
Motelo,
it makes
because it
sense?
means liatela. So it
Exactly,
makes sense. You
exactly.
liatela together. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
So that's what it is. And then as you're going through this journey, just how big? I mean, I've heard big numbers, but I want to hear it from you. How big is the Stokvel market in South Africa?
So, according to NASASA, which is the National Association of Stokvel of South Africa, there are 800,000 stokvels in South Africa, to the
Whoa.
value of 50 billion. Those
And
are
this is
the
50
two
billion
popular.
generated annually.
This is annually.
Wow.
But with these numbers, the problem is there is no data that actually shows where are these stockfiles. So that includes banked and non-banked in this 50 billion industry. So you wouldn't be able to actually quantify it and say, if I go to Eastern Cape, I'll be
Okay.
able to get 80 stock files of this value because
Right.
they've operated informally for the longest time. So it's hard to back up that data, though it was thorough research that was done by African Response Research Company to give it working with NASASA in that manner. But those are the numbers that we work with. It's a big industry, so it's around 50 billion, 800,000 stock files.
Okay.
I wish I could meet all of them, but those are the numbers that we're given according to research.
I think you could spend your whole life trying to meet them, and
Especially the
you'd not even
non-documented
reach
ones.
half of
Yeah.
them. Right, right, right. But I think there are ways that we could potentially reach them. And for the ones that you've come across, what are the different types? Because certainly in your book you talk about the rural stock fells, which maybe are grocery driven, and then when you move to the
So
townships, you see the investment type. So just give me what is the range that you've come across?
So I had a very nice book tour journey. Well, it was not nice, it was for research purposes. I went to all nine provinces to interview different stockfields according to what they do and according if they are solving any need of theirs according to the geographical area. And it was quite interesting. There were good, bad ones, weird ones, even scams that I came across when I was
Wow.
interviewing with different groups. But I did, my finding was definitely more in the rurals. There's more grocery stockfields and burial stockfields because those are the main activities that happens there. Their main need is around because of the poverty line. Is around food supplies. So accessibility and affordability of food becomes a problem. So they're using the stockfile to be able to access that, which is quite great. Which is also something that I really like talking about when I am talking about evolving of stock files that as we evolve stock files, we must never say no. Grocery stock files must go away because of what I've seen. Like you cannot be saying people that need food to invest. Their
Yeah.
necessity right there and then is around food. So just because everything is becoming all reversionalized, we are in this era, we think it's not one size fits all. There is a
Right.
need for groceries stock files for areas that the need is food, and the only way they can get sufficient food in an affordable manner is to use a stockfill. So I that was the one finding that I found. Another thing is because also most of the time in the rural areas the age is more higher, so there is more people that pass away. So another second need would be burial, which becomes expensive. So in order to assist each other, the another popular stockfile would be a burial society or a burial stockfile. So they put that those are the two main ones around those areas. Then as you go to townships, you see the change again. Townships are more exposed to information. The poverty line is a bit better than the rural areas. So you'd find that there's more spaza shops, so a lot of stock fells around, stock felling for stock for their spaza shops so that they can sell.
Okay.
There is still high grocery ones because of the spaza shop element to it again. And again, there is still the barrier one also in township is quite big because it's quite a lot of it's quite a big business also burial in township. So then you would see that, but you would see that there's also now here room to actually even introduce or you can also be able to grow your money this way because you guys are more exposed to information that can actually assist for access to 123, 123. So you see a bit of
Right.
movement, and then as you move to suburbs, to more people that are working, that's where you see now that the grocery and the burial starts to fall away. It's more now, how can we save more? How can we invest more? Especially from the lower middle class to middle class type of population. And then as you go higher middle class, it's more investments, it's more business opportunities, investment opportunities type of organizing yourself into that. Even the name now start changing. We are crowdfunding, as you guys see. So, but it's the
It starts
principle.
being in private
The
school.
principle. We work from Stokvel to the club to the society to investment
Mm,
club. Oh, my group.
mm,
Crowdfunding,
yeah,
but the principle is the same, but it is according to
right.
LSM, location,
Mm,
profession, exposure to information and knowledge, and then you
mm.
that was the definitely the elements that played a role in terms of how people organize themselves and for what.
No, that is great. You know, when you spoke about the food stock fells, one of the things that you mentioned in your book, which I found very compelling, was that you said it is a contribution to food security. So we never. I mean, that for me was like, wow. I had not thought about it. I'd always thought of, okay, no, Stokvel started with food, but I'd never sort of bucketed it and say this is actually a solution that addresses some of the issues around food security. So what I'm getting from what you've been telling me is that Stokvels are an organic tool that people use to address issues that they're faced with. Food, cost of burial, and then as you move towards investment when their needs change. So it is actually, that's what I like about it. It's an ingrown tool that people themselves are using and saying, I cannot do it as myself, therefore I need to do it as a community. And that is absolutely beautiful. Wow, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. Im, you want to comment there, or can we just? I mean, there's so much I want to
Definitely.
ask you.
So, one of the things that is popular about criticizing um, uh, grocery stock files, and I can see where the critic is, but I have seen that people have not also thought of the other side. For example, the one that I already mentioned of it, you can, it's a need according to geographical and poverty level you are in. So you cannot be saying people must invest when they are hungry. They don't even have hungry. So it solves their problem there. And then the critic would come up like, why would they buy 10 mayonnaise for one household? In my experience, in my own home experience, when we got 10 mayonnaises, only two would stay in our house. The rest were for our relatives that could they didn't have money to contribute to a
Mm,
Stokvel grocery. So it was
mm,
solving the black tax. I think so. My mom would know if I'm looking after five
mm,
households. These
mm,
people will be sorted for the next few months. We don't if we give them two of here, two here, two here. So they didn't
mm,
all come 10 of them here. So I'd be like, sometimes we don't get to understand the deep insight behind a certain
mm.
thing. Yes, it might look like a wastage when it's put there, but you'd find that grocery is going to feed not one
A
household, it's
lot
going to
of
feed
people,
5 households. So when we're
right?
saying stockpiles are just grocery stockpiles are just for consuming and doing anything, we need to dig
Mm,
deeper. That is that really the reason? Because honestly, even myself, I used to think, why would you buy 10 rice of thingies just for you to save, not to buy groceries for the next 5 months? Then I actually went to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, you can be able to support other households instead of paying for 5 households every month. You're actually relieving
Right.
yourself, but you're also assisting somebody, which also is such a big part of being a community, assisting those that are
Mm,
part of you,
mm,
and without feeling it on yourself, but at the same time you are being moto, to be able to
mm.
assist that. So
Right.
my stance is always there is room for stock, for grocery stock files, especially in areas like that. Those ones where maybe research, maybe you have, like I have come when I was at the Stokvel Academy, for example, you'd find that there is people that are still buying things that are not necessarily, where they could actually cancel these things and use
Mm,
that part of the money to actually do something that can make them more money, for
mm.
example. But in order to get to that, you actually have to do the inside and actually consult with those stock files, and like one of the things that Mambusi used to do with those stock files when they go buy their groceries, to look at their list and actually ask them, do you really need this? Do you really need this? This one, it's gonna expire. Don't do it, and whatever. And then audit
Mm,
their list and say, okay, these are the things you actually need. You see, save tjhelete e ngata jwang, yenana o nka e saver, enana e nka invest to, and whatever.
mm.
But not everybody is exposed to that kind of service in all of South Africa. So there
Okay.
is room for education to buy
Mm,
better,
mm.
while protecting the food security thing, while being able to support the others. But there's also room to actually cut on when it's not necessary, to actually use
Right.
that money not for only consuming but for also investing.
Okay, no, great stuff. Wow, this is so much. I feel like I'm in a class, and I'm enjoying myself. So you have an interesting story, which you mentioned at the conference, and which you also speak to in your books. You're like in a number of stock files. So how many and why?
6 and counting. So so this is quite funny. Another again, a perception that needs to be still, that we're still working on as Africans, is when we are working together, it means there's something less about that. It's really looked down beyond. I watch
Mm,
these Real Housewives or whatever. I love them because someday I
mm.
would like to be a Real Housewife. So it was actually such a funny moment where this lady were like, "Yo,
Okay,
we are buying
okay,
these
I
nice
can't relate to
bags."
that one.
So this lady was like, yeah, this, like, it's a luxury, it's a very luxury, high class type of people. But it was so funny, they brought a
Mm,
Stokvel into it, just to show that
okay,
you can use Stokvel at any level of your life. And this is how
right.
I'm just putting foundation to my story, why I am the stuff. So this lady's like, I don't even remember if she said it was a Coco Chanel or whatever. It's like, oh, Coco Chanel is so expensive. Then the other lady's like, how about we Stokvel for it?
So
And
another
then the
stock
other
felling
lady,
for Coco Chanel and Louis Vuitton.
like, yes. And then the other says, like, oh my goodness, that is so poor. Why would you want to stockpile for it, Uncle Bernie? As in, like, do you see us? Why would we stockpile for anything? But that lady's like,
Mm,
guys, I don't have 200,000 lying in the round to buy a bag. I'd rather we stockpile for it. But what I
okay.
drew from that was like, oh, here's this perception again. People that stockpile, one, it's like you can't afford. Um,
Mm,
two, it's looked down upon.
right.
Those are the two perception, as in it's for poor people. Things how like if you're
Mm,
gonna o tlo kopantsha le somebody in order to get something. I no, I can afford it alone. So it's something. Those were the two
mm,
things that came out of it. But the positive side out of that was the fact that hore, these luxurious ladies are actually thinking that in order to access
mm,
that, I will need a
mm,
Stokvel. So for me, Stokvel more than anything is for access.
right.
I'm able to access things that I wouldn't necessarily be able to access alone, that
Mm,
I would be interested in. Or it would take me longer to access them and
Right.
alone. So while it would take a shorter time when I am doing with others. And then
Right.
for another person could be affordability. Another person could be to diversify. So there's a lot of reasons that a lot of people haven't seen it. And for me, there are all three: access. I wouldn't be able to buy a 12 million student accommodation alone. It will take me forever. Even though I am
Right.
middle class, I've got a good job, and uh, like you're right, but doing that alone forever. So I joined a property stokvel to do that.
I
But
like that.
me as
I like that.
but me
A lot
as
of people would
alone.
say, no, I'm good where I am.
Oh, wow.
So for me, I was like,
I'm absolutely enjoying this conversation with Palesa, and I hope you are too. Before we continue, let's just take a moment to say thank you to this video sponsor, Phoenix Health and Wellness Trainers, without whose support, we will not be able to continue giving you this content. Yo, 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 hold on to your gym equipment because Phoenix is here to amp up your game. Phoenix will do cardio, strength training, personalized workouts, corporate team building. They will even take you through counseling. There's a whole lot that they have to offer. Their service is tailor made for you and your needs, you or your team's needs, whatever it is. Engage them, talk to them, find out what they have to offer. Now let's dive back into our captivating conversation with Palesa, who's our guest on Crowd Talk.
so for me, I was like, oh, look at me. I own, as Palesa alone, I own a student accommodation. Yes, I own it with other people, but it's always it's a type
Right.
of an investment that I've always wanted to get into. Had I waited for me to save in order to get into student accommodation, it was going to take me forever until I get discouraged. So access sorted, affordability sorted. Number one, 12 million. I don't have 12 million, but we got together. We can raise 12 million to be able to do that. Three, even, and then another thing is diversifying my portfolio in an affordable manner. If I'm
Right.
interested in property, I'm interested in listed shares, I'm interested in travel, I'm interested in food for people at home, I'm interested in a social of some sort. What can solve these things without me feeling it too much as part of my expense? I stockfell for them. Stokvel, if I'm part of a grocery stokvel, it's not necessarily for me because it's just me. So I can use that money to stokvel for a relative at home, for example. At home, when we go home, we need to buy groceries. So instead of doing that, I'll be like, I have this stokvel. They're gonna come and give you the food. I've saved money for
Right.
December. I love traveling. I love traveling. So I stock fell for that. So for me, there is a planning and accountability. Or this travel plan actually gonna have happen because when you do it alone, you can find problems, change your mind, no accountability, and all of that. So it's great. Plus, I love traveling with people. That problem is sorted via Stokvel. I'm interested in a few alternative investment. I've got a stokvel that invests in cows, in delivery
Wow.
bikes, in the JSE shares, with just not feeling it. I'm probably paying about 500 rand per month for those stokvels and whatever. But also, some of the stokvels you can pay just a lump sum of what you can afford and leave it right there just for your own cash flow management. So for me, my portfolio. When I say I'm an investor, I don't mean I, Palesa, alone have this money that is lots that I've put out there, but I'm able to access investments at a higher capital that I wouldn't be necessarily been able to
Right.
if I was doing all of this alone. So that's why
Which
I'm in different stokvels. They are solving a certain ambition or need in my life.
no, that is absolutely awesome. One of the things that really caught me was when you're speaking about Stokvels and how members of Stokvels learn to spend their money wisely. You gave an example. You said that it's better to buy with cash than using store credit. Are you able to expand a little bit on this, on how that process came about? How did, if somebody comes and they're used to buying, let's say, maybe clothes from whichever store has a credit card, which we all know is extremely expensive. How do you change that mindset? How do those members now start seeing that actually no, let me say, what's sort of the process behind that?
So the economy is not great. So a lot of times for our basic needs, we need to be quite clever about it. And when it comes to credit, credit has become very expensive. I don't know about in Botswana. You in South Africa, credit has become very expensive with all the
Yeah.
inflation, the interest rate increasing each and other day. So it becomes very expensive to buy things via credit, while you can actually club with other people that are interested in what you are buying, and then buy that thing cash, and which happens a lot. But what the advantage of also doing that would be the bargaining power, because you come uh, a lot of stores are willing to give you discounts on things if you are saying, hey, we've got 100,000 here, we want to buy your batteries, for example, but we are bringing you a whole 100,000 all at the same time from the same people. What can you do for us?
Right.
Otherwise, we're going to negotiate with another supplier, for example. They are always willing to jump on bulk and collective power negotiation. And I've seen it so many times. Recently, in my complex, people bought inverters at a very discounted rate because I made them just stokvel for it. So, because now everybody is in demand for this one thing, and it's 40,000 each, for example, with this inverter example. But you are coming, there is 12 of you to one supplier, and you're saying, hi guys, you cannot be giving us 40 as if I'm coming alone.
Right.
Otherwise, we're going to go buy ourselves in different suppliers, or we can come to you together, but you're going to have to give us a reasonable price because we are giving you all the business. So yes, really a lot of these suppliers of these inverters were like, yes, actually we're going to, instead of 40, pay 35,000 each, because of the collective power negotiation. I've seen it a lot in property also, because cash is king. You are coming with such big capital together. Instead of paying this value that we have advertised this property to be in, I'll give you with this because you're bringing so much capital into it. So the collective power does make a huge difference when you are negotiating prices with stores or suppliers, rather than just going alone and taking that thing on credit.
Right.
So that's the thing then, and that's what I always tell groups, that do not only benefit on the actual money, benefit on the collective power of negotiation also, of what you can bring and what you can bring. Otherwise, we can just do things alone. What is the point of doing things together if you are not benefiting on the actual principle of doing it together? So
Right.
yes, to definitely run away from getting things from credit is definitely to rather organize yourself to get that thing together.
Okay. All right. We're gonna keep just eating away. I mean, guys, here's a book. Buy it. Buy it. Buy it. Buy it. Buy it. This is a shameless plug for Palesa, but honestly, there's a lot of good information that she has spent years putting together, that she has spent years learning, giving us examples of how we can improve ourselves as communities. So, with that said, Palisa, define financial literacy and the factors that you picked up that you ended up concluding that a lot of the Stokvels that you were dealing with were not financially literate.
So first and foremost, not just for Stokvels, a lot of people think financial literacy is based on your level of education, your stature in life, where you live. As much as those play a factor, but it doesn't mean that automatically you are financial literate because you are an executive of an engineering company, for example. You might
Right.
have nothing financial literacy. Firstly, because financial literacy is not taught as a separate subject alone in schools. So that's what makes the financial literacy to be almost covering almost every level of LSMs when it comes to that. So it has nothing to do who you are, what you have studied, or anyway, anybody can be financial literate if they don't educate themselves about their finances. So now that is out of the way, financial literacy is actually being able to manage your own personal money. So it's the financial management or understanding the financial management of your money, basically. It can be personal, business, and in general. So not understanding how a budget works, what is a balance sheet, how does it affect your day-to-day life, what are expenses, what are incomes, what is debt, what is interest, what is inflation. So those basic things that I just read right now that you can literally Google, if you're not interested in those things and in terms of how they work, you might be financially illiterate. If you
Okay.
don't know how inflation works, if you don't know what is interest, you might be financially illiterate. And then thirdly is the financial literacy is ongoing. I know a
Right.
lot of people in the finance field that I was even working with that were not financially literate. You know why? Because they didn't understand the personal side of it. You probably understand the balance sheet, the income statement, the business side of finance, but the personal side of finance needs self education, needs you to be
Yeah.
interested in knowing those things.
Yeah.
And that is the main reason a lot of people, even educated people, are not financial literate, because they didn't do the self education part of it, how it affects your money. So the great thing about being financially literate, you know, when you are educated, is the fact that you can actually grasp it much easier. Great, even if you're even in
Right.
the finance field, it's much easier, but it doesn't automatically just land on your plate. I didn't study personal finance at school. I studied corporate finance. For me
Right.
to understand personal finance, I had to do self education that is not taught at school and university and whatever. So it was a self initiative to understand in that manner, and how I was able to see that now it lacks is because it also started with me myself. Like, do I understand as a finance person? Do I understand the personal side of financial literacy? Once I understood that, I was able
Right.
to identify when a stock fell is not financially literate, and that's where I would definitely and see it in terms of they didn't know that they can invest as a group. They didn't know investment
Right.
products. They didn't know what questions to ask at the bank. Sometimes we think financial literacy is what is an asset, like big things and whatever. Sometimes it's asking the right questions. Like I sit with financial advisors and they would tell you that their most difficult clients are the financially illiterate ones. And these are like high net worth financial advisors, because a person would be like, no, can we put your money offshore? And then the person would be like, what's offshore? And so you have to
Let's
explain.
start there.
Yes. So you have to explain yourself, Khati, when you're advising somebody that has got some idea what is what, which is financial literacy. They are able to
Mm,
even engage you on that level. Yeah, or, oh, okay, I didn't know offshore there is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But since you are the expert, I can understand. But at least you have an idea with it. So for me, I always say loosely financial literacy most of the time is at least having an idea of how finance work and being able
okay.
to apply that.
Okay. So just a quick question. When understanding that okay, there are some stock fails that have an idea. Have you ever come across a situation where they just know they want to invest, but didn't necessarily have a process or understand what to invest in? How do you handle such challenges? What process
Yo,
do you
there is
use?
still a lot of stock firms like that. They have
Mm,
a lot of capital. Remember, stock firms raising money is not the problem. Putting the money to work is where the
mm,
problem is. Like
mm,
everybody would always be like, no, how can you chalete together? Mchayelo wa rona. But how can
mm,
what are you doing with that money that, or what are you going to do with that the money you're claiming? You'll see
right.
all sorts of ideas are coming, or no ideas at all. I was actually literally talking to a Stokvel right now of
Mm,
ladies that have raised 1 million and they don't know what to do with it.
mm, mm, mm,
They've been sitting with that money for 3 years. For me, I just felt like, yo, money. I always say, I even say it on the book. I'm like, money that
mm.
is not put to work is lazy money. You need to put your money to
Yeah.
work. Otherwise,
No,
it's just being lazy.
absolutely.
So I just like, so your money has been lazy for 3 years. You have not
Mm,
have sent it somewhere to go work for you. Oh my goodness, what a waste and what a lost opportunity. But the great thing is that it's never too late. All these people that need to be done is to be
mm,
exposed to investment opportunities that are mutually beneficial, that are genuine, that are legit, and that is aligned to mostly their goals. A lot of stock funds
mm.
always have a goal of some sort. What do they want to do? That's why
Right.
the goal is never to change a certain group. If a group will be saying, again, this last stock fella I spoke to because they're in my mind right now, they want to fund women businesses because they find it
Mm,
harder to get funding for women. So,
mhm.
whatever solution you're coming with them, you have to have that in mind. Oh, remember these people. They want to fund women.
Right.
How can they benefit from funding women while still in line with their vision? How can they
Right.
still make money out of making money? That's now where you expose them to
Mm,
microfinance. You can borrow this money. You can get equity from these businesses that you are funding.
mm,
But those are the
mm,
things they didn't know. They had the money, but they didn't
mm,
know the opportunities. So there's still a lot of education and
mm,
exposure that needs to
mm.
be put out there in terms of opportunities for stockfels to put their money into.
Right. No, absolutely. I think you're right. I've come across similar questions where, like you said, people have lazy money. They've been fundraising. They're very disciplined at that. And then the biggest challenge is now what? And I think part of it is just educating them. You know, it's trying to figure out, well, how do we in a standard pension world where you come from, there's gonna be an asset allocation advisor that you probably have that is going to say, well, you want to have X amount for your members based on your profile in so many years, and it becomes very complex and very jargony. We can use a lot of financial jargon, but essentially, what needs to happen is that there needs to be a process where they have the goal, like you said. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? We want to invest in women-owned businesses. Great. What is going to be your criteria? Are you limiting yourself to a specific geography? Are you limiting yourself to a specific size? And then probably even when you're looking at that, what is that Stokvel's risk appetite? I mean, you know,
Very important.
Wawana, which will also give ideas as to what it is that they can invest in, and taking them through that process and helping them just define what they're going to invest in. Because I think once the process is in place, it then becomes easier for them to make those investment decisions, because now they have a set criteria that they follow. And I think that's something that's missing in this space. But
So
that's my
funny
two
that you
cents.
You mentioned that. That is very true. Processes are a big part of it. People have the money, but they don't know how to, and the steps into going to how to look into. For example, I always say if you are looking into investing in a business, rather consult with people that are in that business, or an entrepreneur that can assist you in terms of, should this business not work out, then what should happen? These are the type of businesses you should look at, or a venture capitalist person that has done this before. So again, that is education. So whatever you are getting into as a stokvel, you need an expert in that field. Like, I'm not a properties expert, but I'm in a property stokvel. But in order to identify which properties were good to invest in, we had to consult with a property expert to say, guys, because this is your situation, you don't want to lose people's money. This is the risk level of your group. Rather invest in something like this, but it's not something that you could have just figured it out ourselves. So it is important for processes of decision making to be in place, the risk appetite to be determined, and to consult with the expert of that field that you want to get your money into.
Okay. Awesome. Palisa, we could talk all day. We have to wrap it up. I really appreciate your time. But one of the things that I am interested in, and I think you've touched a little bit on it, that, you know, there's the rural stokvels that are addressing their needs. Then as you go up into people who have a little bit more, are able to save more, their needs now grow beyond needing the basics like food and burial. Now there's an element of savings. How do we still engage with the rurals to give them that aspiration that we understand you're servicing this need now, but we want to get you to a point where it goes beyond servicing the need of eating today and now looking forward to the future? What are your thoughts around that?
So again, one of the hardest things that I found in terms of working with different types of stokvels, and that I find quite unique. You would have needed to actually engage the stokvels themselves to understand, because I also didn't understand until I did. As rural as I grew up, as is when I actually spoke to these people. And for me, the conclusion I came into would be like, your strategy when you are coming to educate these people, you need to put yourself in their shoes. You need to get the insight of, once the need is sorted, now you have a system that is working for you. It's food, right? This great. This has been working for years. But how do you now branch into other things, or how do you make more beneficial with your money? We have seen the strength. How so? For me, I thought the education now would be how to take from what is working and make it better.
Right.
So instead of saying, let's change you from a grocery stokvel to a savings stokvels. Because now when you are saying that, you are taking food away from their mouth, literally. But if
Right.
you are saying, you see what you are doing with the grocery stokvel, you are taking out 100 Rand. If you would take that 100 Rand, there's two options. This is how I usually educate them. you look at your members. How are you able? What is your affordability? Dintho di a tura. The food is expensive. So cutting on the food budget might be shooting yourself in the foot.
Right.
But this is the system that you are used to, that you can still get to use the same system, but in a better way. Instead of paying 100 rand, how about you try paying 130, for example? Then you know the 100 rand is still going to what your need is, but the 30 rand now you are looking to for opportunities outside just the groceries. Funny enough, I have got a case study of a group that we did that with them in Soweto. They were big on food. Another thing about Stokvel people, because they know this thing works, they had to change their mind. When you come, be like, "Hey, when how to be matataru now?" When so be like, so and they were like, no, why don't you? Lucky enough with them, they were able to match what they were contributing for grocery to contribute for something else. So if they were
Right.
paying 100 rand for that, they continued, but they used the same system to now with the same head to add. So instead of paying 100 rand, they would pay 200 rand. The 100 rand would go to the food, the 100 rand would go to investment. They went straight for investing.
Okay.
And they took that 100 rand that was for investment, they invested in cows. They invested via a company that was farming cows. It worked out. They liked it so much they started reviewing their grocery stock fell to what more so it's great when it comes from them. But what that took, it took education, first of all. Two, it took the investment actually working out to buy bone, or oh, this thing yasebetsa. How about we maybe re nka tlosa oil, motho le motho a nka ithekela oil. Let's remove oil and increase that money that we're going to buy oil with, put it aside on the pot of investments and increase our investments, because this investment seems to be working. We like it. It has worked out. We know how it works. And most importantly, it also comes with a lot of knowledge. And these are like the older citizens. So they were so willing to also learn, like every time, oh, why did this investment dip in this month? Did the cows die and whatever? And so that's how I saw that it comes with, let them do what they're doing, use the system that they're already using for a better or to upgrade their thinking. It will come to them when they see the advantage of doing this, will help them. Same with the spaza shops. They only saw the advantage of the stocking together once they saw the power of negotiating for the bulk together rather than alone as a spaza person going to buy that alone. So sometimes it does take seeing where you are trying to drive them to work. We test them with that limited capital first. Then they see it's working. Then they start going. And sometimes, even if it doesn't work, they appreciate their knowledge that they're getting out of debt and how it works. And then they would still go in and go into, now that Stokvel is doing grocery, ETFs, cow investments, and shares, all
Oh,
started in
wow.
a thinking. How I foresee this is their children are going to be taking over the investment part of side, and then bona they're gonna still go on with the grocery thing. From what I'm seeing, because their children are more involved on the investment ones now, but which are also great for the Stokvel industry. We do need the generational going on of it. If it's in investment, great, because now it means we are moving the right direction. But it is hard to say to people that have been working for something that is clearly working for them, change it. Go fund businesses, go invest in whatever. Yes, we can tell them, well, there is these opportunities while you are doing this. this is how you can make money out of them. This is how you can lose money out of them, which is part of education anyway. You can use some of the budget you already have for your groceries to get into these opportunities, or you can go on top, then leave it up to them. It has become very hard to say leave it and go to this because it is really serving a certain need into them. Rather, put a process in place that will work for them. I once came across a group. It was not grocery. I don't even remember what type of a grocery, but I could see what they're doing is a total mess and a waste of time and a waste of money. But I couldn't tell them that
Right.
without the educational aspect of them and actually seeing like, okay, so like, oh, this is what you're doing. How is that benefiting you? What would you like? Try it, like, what would you like to achieve? What would you like to? All these things that are about the achiever, they are not represented in how you are how you are working. How about put a place in process like this so that you can be able to achieve these things that are about to achieve them. So there is a gradual of transforming the industry into being from just consumers to being investors and funders is not a total turnaround. It's a gradual process. And
So
as you
it's
said, the
definitely
main
not from
things.
one meeting. It's
It's
engaging with
not
them
from one
consistently.
meeting. Yes, so there is definitely elements to it. Also, the financial education level of the group, which is why it's important. The more financial literate people are in that, the quicker they are to jump into opportunities. Another thing that financial illiteracy creates is fear. Oh, re a tshaba, tjhelete ya rona is going to go away. This thing won't work. Gati, when you educate people how things work, they are more inclined to getting into them because they understand them.
Okay, wow. That is very insightful and thank you so much. Palesa, we are just at 1 hour. I know you're a busy lady. What are your parting shots? How would you like to leave the crowdfund viewer? You've given us so much, but I just want to give you one more opportunity to say goodbye with a little gem.
One last, especially it's around crowdfunding. What I like saying, and I think this is a popular phrase, for crowdfunding is just a stokvel kapa mochaelo that went to private school or even Harvard. The principle is the same. The solutionizing is the same. What you call it doesn't matter. What we should be learning is using the power of a collective to solve our economic problems. It can
Absolutely.
be access, it can be affordability, it can be even employment that we can use together. Alone is very hard to do things, but together you can really, really do a lot of things that you are not going to be able to do it. Just like the African proverb says that alone you go fast, but together you go far. That's my parting
Wow.
shot.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Palisa. We certainly have a lot to talk about. We want to see you again. Like I said, grab yourself a copy of this book. It'll have a lot of the insights that she's just shared with you. And it's available at exclusive books, ne?
Yes, it's available in exclusive books. I'm not sure if you guys have bargain books too there. It's also
No, just
available at
exclusive
bargain
books.
books.
Okay,
Okay.
great stuff. No, thank you so much, Palisa, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, Batu. It was great being on your platform.
Cheers. Bye.